Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thanks again for listening. This is the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. I am Nelson E. Brown, and I want to thank you all for tuning in this evening. Tonight, I have a very, very great show. So I am glad that you all have had the opportunity to join me. We are approaching the end of May, but we are also approaching our Memorial Day weekend this weekend. And I am very glad to have our very first U.S. Army veteran here with us this evening to talk about his experience in the military and how that has contributed to the development of his career in writing and in public speaking, and also with his foundation, I Am Greatness. And we also have Miss Terri Johnson here with us this evening to talk about her work in social work and as an alcohol and drug counselor. And I want to give a shout out to Miss Nicole Mosby Taylor for making this connection happen. So I am very, very excited because we have two people of different backgrounds joining us this evening, but both of you have a history of service. And I think that should be recognized here on the Beauty in Us Radio. So I'm definitely going to, before I begin, I want to tell you all that this weekend I had my second dose of the vaccine. So I'm very, very happy that process is over and done with. I waited a month for each dose, but I was definitely tired yesterday. I felt the symptoms yesterday. I was out of it. I pretty much slept for most of the day because the symptoms came in, but I was a lot better today when I woke up this morning. So I'm glad that has subsided. So I want to encourage you all to continue to get vaccinated. The 2 doses are worth it. I'm glad that I did my part, and I'm glad that I'm doing my part to keep everybody else safe and to get back to a sense of normalcy. So without further ado, I'm going to begin with Miss Terri Johnson. I would like for her to talk about her new children's book and also the work that she does in her field. So Miss Johnson, welcome to the show. I thank you for taking time out to be a part of my broadcast. I read your bio and I really enjoyed your bio. I think that you are the first person that has actually been a part of my broadcast who's actually working in the field that you're in. So this will be a great opportunity for you to share with the listeners the work that you do every day. And I think that the pandemic, with the work that you do, I think that a lot of people overshadow the work that you do in the pandemic because a lot of people don't think about the groups of people that you help and how they're affected by the pandemic in many ways, between the being socially distant, the self-isolation, and just kind of being in a way cooped up in the household, so that may not have the best circumstances, that may have unpredictable circumstances. Could you tell us a little bit about the work that you do every single day in order to mend that?
Sure. So in addition, and thank you, Mr. Hunter, for your service, your continual service, and happy Memorial Day to you. I have a soldier myself, so I know how much you all put in. So I just wanted to say that to you before I forget. Also, May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. So I don't know if you know that or not, but I was really excited that you got in contact with me and allowed me to come on your show. So thank you for that. The work that I do every day is never the same. And so that's one of the reasons why I love it. But as you said, you have to be willing to serve others, right? And I think that even though this is a profession that it takes a lot of, you have to take a lot of education and things like that. When it gets down to it, it's about relationships and about connectiveness. You sometimes it's like you have to use your relationship to build before anyone will listen to you, before anyone will be open. And that can be, I've worked in various settings, from the schools to prisons to central booking to doing crisis lines and things like that. But what it boils down to, whether the person can see you or over the hotline, you have to build some type of connection. And sometimes you don't have that much time to do it. So the work that I'm currently doing is I work in schools. I also, from pre-K, I mostly work with pre-K to fifth. And I also work doing some part-time work in the ER. So I have been working since COVID. I started back in October working in the ER because I wanted to do my part in some kind of way. And so you meet people a lot of times in social work not at their best. And it's your responsibility to help them through it. I don't give advice. I have to tell people a lot of times I do not give advice no more than any other licensed professional, a doctor or, a lawyer or a nurse. We, study, it's a science and art to what we do. But mostly what it's about is listening to what's going on with someone, linking them with resources, supporting them doing whatever journey that they're going through. And so if you don't have a heart of service, if you don't believe that you are the servant, sometimes you won't do your best work. And I know I'm skipping along because I'm thinking about it's graduation time. So I'm thinking about folks that are graduating and coming into the profession. But that is basically, what I do. I deal with children that have had unbelievable things happen to them, unspeakable things that have happened to them, and to see their resilience. A lot of times I say to myself, I let them know, you all put us adults to shame because your resilience is unbelievable. The things that you're able to go through. So helping them, and a lot of times, children are more resilient than us. So being able to give them the trauma-informed and therapeutic services that they deserve, so they, of course, will be impacted by it, but maybe not as in such a negative way compared to not having any type of service at all. Trying to instill empowerment, belief, hope, faith. That's a part of my work as well. So that's basically what I do every day.
Yes, and I definitely understand everything that you just laid out on the table about the profession of social work. And I often think that sometimes people overlook social workers a lot, because I feel like you guys definitely work all of the time. It's kind of like a nonstop thing with you all because you guys have to be prepared for any situation with however it comes. You guys have to always keep an open mind in terms of the situations that that you have to deal with on a daily basis, in terms of trying to figure out the best solutions in order to solve problems for other people and their circumstances. So ever since the beginning of the pandemic, and I've spoken about this with some of my other guests, like I think about how many people who have been subjected to abuse in a way. So whether it's domestic abuse, whether it's children who've been victims of child abuse and neglect in some sort, I often think about how the pandemic has taken its toll on people's mental health and wellness, because I know that everybody is not happy about being in a state of isolation or being socially distant from their friends, from their family members, their loved ones. I know that there are people that don't know how to handle that. And I know that the suicide rates have skyrocketed in the past year. I know that a lot of relationships have, been tarnished because of how the pandemic has exposed so much.
Right.
What has been the most difficult part about working throughout the pandemic for you?
So it's kind of been like doing social work on steroids at times, because you have to use so many different skills. And one of the most difficult for me is not really working with people that are in crisis or things like that. First of all, we're not meant to be in crisis as long as we've been in crisis. That's the first thing. Our physiology is not built to be in the long-term crisis that we've been in, and being unaware. So one of the biggest challenges is working with, like, I have a private practice, and working with my clients that have already dealt with anxiety. And so the pandemic, definitely, you're talking about worrying about the unknown. The pandemic really threw us all for a loop. So just working through things with them, being available to them more than usual, really enforcing and letting them know it's okay to reach out to me if you are feeling, unsafe, and not unsafe meaning suicidal or homicidal, but unsafe just emotionally and mentally. That seemed to have, at this point, helped my clients that had depression and anxiety quite a bit. Having to be constantly around someone that you may love, it's beyond cabin fever. So trying to help people come up with routines and regimens within the home. If you have places in the backyard, two of my clients, they were afraid to even go outside in their own backyard. And so I had to explain to them that, it's okay to do that. So providing information, sending them information from the CDC. There was a lot of psychoeducational stuff, like educating people instead of what they got from a post, and sending it to them. And then also letting them know you're not overreacting. This isn't an irrational thought. This is something that's really difficult. So affirming them and trying to normalize as much as you can. Because I didn't want to lie. I didn't want to lie to them and say, oh, it's going to all get better, because we didn't have that as a guarantee. And I didn't want to be, putting out some false hope. So we just worked through it. In terms of the hardest part for me was technology. Technology was the hardest part because that's not my strength. So not being able to be in person and what I call feel people really, bothered me at first, because I didn't know how to do Zoom and all of that. I was talking to my clients over the phone. And so not being able, I had to go back to my Magellan days, where we did the hotline and, having to listen for things in the background. To make sure that, what they were saying, asking different questions. What's that saying? What's going on back there? Just to kind of try to stay in tune with what was going on. So, yeah, technology was the biggest for me. It was overwhelming sometimes, to just how overwhelmed everyone else was. And I belong to a couple of therapy groups. So some of the healers and helpers, they were really stressed out and really sharing how much of a load they wanted to do, take care of everyone. And for some reason, I'm weird. I'm usually high strung when everything is okay. And when I'm in a crisis, I'm cool. My hand is steady, so I kind of was able to handle this part of it and try to be be more of service. Like I said, I went back in October working in the ER, and so, and I was still at home from working in the school system. So I took myself out of the home where I was very comfortable and went back into the ER because I didn't feel like I was, doing enough. So I wanted to, get into the action and be able to be in person with people. And I knew the ER would never close. So being able to work with families, some that, lost their loved ones to COVID, or that were very, very ill from COVID, providing them with information, support, and just being a listening ear, that was helpful to me, believe it or not. Being able to volunteer, all of those things were things that I found helpful, because I felt like I was being useful. So I suggested, after talking to folks, I asked them, what are some of the things you enjoy doing? You can take this time. You don't have any control over. You only have control over your reaction and your actions during this time. So what is it that you haven't been able to do that you could do? So, some people have done some interesting things in the process of it. Just paying attention to themselves, not having the clutter and the chaos of everyday life. And so trying to reframe things for folks seem to have provided some support. And like I said, two of my clients that dealt with anxiety and everything else, they wound up getting COVID. So having to work with them through that, them being very, very ill. And thank God they, both got through it. But it was tough. And I was doing the little cheers, as you go along, because we have to celebrate every little thing. If we can pay attention to every little negative thing, then we definitely have to big ourselves up and shout ourselves out for those little things that really aren't that little. Those little day-to-day things become a big deal when you put them all together. So trying to do that kind of sums up what I've tried to do, and trying to be supportive to people in my field as well. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, you have a history of service. I do know that you became a licensed, according to your bio, you became a clinical alcohol and drug counselor in 2001. And you also released a self-published children's story and activity book, which is a coloring book. So could you talk a little bit about your book and why you wrote the book and how that kind of ties into the work that you do every day?
Okay. So as you said, very, very, very good point that you made of people being kind of like captive in their homes. It wasn't, the pandemic hasn't been great for people that have been stuck in the home with their abuser, whether it's for intimate partner violence, domestic violence, for children. And this book has been in the making for about 30 years, but definitely my whole career, one way or another, I've been cultivating body safety zones. And so Body Safety Zones is my first book that I self-published in April of 2020 during Child Abuse Prevention Month. And when it comes to children, they are my absolute favorite people. No one tops them for me. And I believe that, prevention over intervention is the way to go. Prevention is key. So my book, would you like for me to show it or just keep on so people can get a visual? Okay.
Absolutely.
So this is my book, Body Safety Zones, and this is the main character, Miss Be Persistent. And so this is the first book, and then I also have a coloring activity book that I self-published, and it has memory game cards in there of some of the things of the body safety zones and some other things. And the reason why I created it is because I wanted to educate children 3 to 8 about body agency, about consent and permission, and to empower these little people to know that, yes, you have to listen to your parents, you have to be respectful to adults, but your body does belong to you. And changing the way we look at children by starting with them and then working with parents on the back end, because parents, adults can be a lot harder than the children, of course. Do you mean I can't just do such and such to my child? Well, I mean, you just can't do what you want to your child. That's what I mean, and you don't want to do that because you don't want to desensitize them to other adults just grabbing them or touching them and telling them what to do. And, I said, give me a kiss, or I said, give me a hug. Because it sets them up to think that that's something that they have to do. And of course, we know, unfortunately, all adults are not safe. All older kids are not safe. And so my book lets them know that it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's, and I do a lot of role playing, and I, let them, I first make sure that they know what's the difference between pretend and for real, because I don't want them going and say, Miss T. Johnson asked if, she could touch my body safety zones, and then Miss T. Johnson going to jail somewhere. So I, go ahead and make sure that we run it out. We run it down. We go over what is permission, and we role play. And, I have had students as young as 3, and they get it. And so that is my hard work. That's what I'm really passionate about, because, it takes a lot less to build strong children than repair broken men, as Frederick Douglass said. So that's what we want. That's what we want to do. So I don't have to see, and other clinicians don't have to see, or we as citizens, world citizens, don't have to pay for what's happened to someone when they were a child. And that's physical, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. We're paying for it in a big way. And I mean, and it's beyond the numbers that we probably could even say. the impact that abuse has on us in every single aspect of our lives, and how it leaves people susceptible to using drugs to self-medicate, exacerbating the mental health, maybe something that was genetic, but PTSD, other anxieties, depression, because they are ruminating over what may have happened in the past, relationship issues, relational issues, because how can I trust you if someone close to me? And the majority of the people that are abused by people that they know. It's not that creepy, pasty weirdo in the bush ready to jump out on your child. It's someone that they know. We have that, of course, right? But it's what we know. I've had situations where parents have trafficked their kids. So it's a lot of education that is really important, and at the same time giving them a voice, letting them know, because as I was growing up, and a lot of people that I know growing up, you were seen, you were not heard. Sometimes you weren't even seen. So being able to let them know that they have a voice. I still instill, I talk to them about respect and things like that, but empowering them. And you should see these, just how confident they are when they sit up and say our motto, or I get them to call out to the other young people and asking them what the zones are, and just how how they light up, and they're able to say, able to contribute back, and even teach. I encourage them to teach other children about body safety zones, because I let them know, it's not something that Miss T Johnson can do. We all have a part to give back. So I encourage them to basically advocate for others, and also be ambassadors of this movement, body safety zones. So that's basically why I did it, because I work with way too many. In every place that I've worked, I've talked to someone and to individuals in great detail, and that have been abused, that are having problems at work. I mean, even in EAP, which is only sometimes 1 to 6 sessions, it comes up. Even though it's supposed to be brief, therapy, it comes up. And so it's definitely the real pandemic. It's a silent pandemic. And trying to have this information get out and widespread and have it shared is very difficult, which I was surprised how difficult it is to try to get it different places. But our children are definitely worth all the headache and sometimes heartache that it takes trying to get the message out.
Well, I definitely think that the work that you're doing is very, very phenomenal. You are definitely appreciated. So if no one else tells you that you're awesome, I'm going to tell you that you're awesome.
Thank you
for the work that you do, and I see your passion, because, and this is what the true passion is about. Putting in the extra work. It's not always about getting paid. For the work that you do, it's about your heart has to be in it in order for you to actually care.
Absolutely.
So, and especially with the type of work that you do. So I do appreciate all of the work that you do, not for children, for women, for men, for families, not just, throughout our community, but you are just that role model, for other social workers and other people in this field, around the world. So I do appreciate you for that. So
thank you.
I think that, it's really phenomenal. Now, Mr. Marc Hunter, I'm going to turn it over to you and talk a little bit about the work that you do. Now, I know that in your bio, one of the things I mentioned earlier on in the show is that you are a U.S. Army veteran. And in addition to that, you also have an organization called I Am Greatness. So could you tell the listeners a little bit about what your experience has been like as a U.S. Army veteran, and how that has how that plays a role into what you've done as a motivational speaker and as an author?
Okay, well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you both for mentioning the fact that I'm a veteran, and also talking about mental health. Over the course of the last 9 years that I've been out of the military, I have had friends who've had mental health issues, who I served with. And I had a couple who did pass away, take their own lives. I'd like to give a shout out to Dwayne Johnson, no relation to The Rock, and a close friend of mine, Daniel Wilderman, both individuals who ended up taking their own lives as a result of losing the war to their own mental health. So thank you for the work that you do. And, basically what I could tell you as far as being a veteran, I don't know what everyone else's situation is like. I have a very supportive family, and they've helped me a lot like I said, over the last 9 years, coming on almost a decade being out of the military. And as a result of that, I don't think that I've had a terribly tough time. I'm also an intelligent individual who's, able to work hard and start businesses and different things of that nature. So being a veteran, I do get the opportunity to utilize a lot of the stories that I had or that I experienced while in the military, which there are some good times and there are some bad times. And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of bad times. Okay. A lot of situations that you sit down and you ponder, how did you end up where you are today? And there's a lot of tough things that you have to get through, but at the end of the day, you overcome them, and I think that's the most important thing. It's very empowering, the fact that you're able to go through the mud, so to speak, and come out on top. But a lot of my motivation does stem from that, from the ability to overcome in many situations. And I Am Greatness is basically a result of that, of having gone through the military, having been considered someone who was a bad soldier at one point, and then coming out of it, one of the more decorated soldiers in his platoon, or even I would say within my company. And as a result of that, I felt that I could then motivate others, tell them stories that, of my failures and my triumphs, as well as those of others that I serve with. And it ended up being pretty impactful, as well as, an affirmation that others can have and utilize in order to make themselves, more powerful and proud of themselves, being that I am greatness.
Yes, absolutely. So could you tell us a little bit about, I know that the both of us had a conversation about you being an entrepreneur and having your own businesses. So could you tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurship? Because a lot of young people want to be entrepreneurs. A lot of young people want to be their own bosses. And a lot of people don't understand the ins and outs of what that really means. So could you tell us a little bit about your work as an entrepreneur and your businesses, and what led you to starting I Am Greatness, along the way?
Okay, so as far as becoming an entrepreneur, for anyone who is interested, the best thing you could do is to get started where you are with what you got. Like, it doesn't matter if you have nothing. I literally started I Am Greatness in my mother's basement. I didn't have a graphic designer, or I didn't have the money to pay anybody to create a logo for me. I had to do it myself. I put together some t-shirts, and what it all really stemmed from was the idea that I felt that if I could create a company or put just the words on a t-shirt, that someone would have to look at it and they would have to say the name of it. Like, if you think about it, just saying I am greatness, how powerful an affirmation that is, and how that can get into your mind, and you can really start to believe that you can do great things. So just getting started was difficult, but I stuck it out. Every little dollar that I was able to put together, bought some t-shirts, got some graphic designing to get it put on the t-shirts, created the design myself. I read about 10 books on how to be an entrepreneur, how to start a business, how to do taxes, the whole nine, all the way through. So put yourself in a library, whatever, like I said, whatever it is that you have, from whether you got $1 or 50 cents in your pocket, you can make it happen. And especially with the internet today, you don't even really need a product for the most part. Just log online, start talking, start telling people your story. I think it's very important. One of the things that I got involved with in order to become a better public speaker was Toastmasters. I came to Baltimore in about 2014, and I had gotten involved with the family business Hunter's Home Center, which is actually the shirt that I'm wearing right now. I'm just actually coming from work, but running that with my father and my brother, that's also been a big step. So I joined Toastmasters in order to become a better salesman, because we're selling kitchen cabinets, doors, windows, high ticket items, and I just wasn't ready for it. So I thought that if I took some classes or learned a few things as far as public speaking goes, I'd become a better salesman. And that's a fact. It's very true. At the end of the day, I then started to participate in speech competitions. And as a result of those speech competitions, people started to contact me by email, phone, and the whole nine, and asking me to speak at events. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. And I got opportunity after opportunity. And I was like, wow, I might be able to get paid doing this, make some extra money that I could then roll into my companies. And I've been able to do that successfully, with the exception of 2020 being that the pandemic did ruin some things. But, since I would say 2014, I've been, speaking publicly, and it's been a roller coaster, definitely.
Yes, so you've been...
You did ask me why I started I Am Greatness, and I don't know if I necessarily spoke about that. But in the military, I became known as a motivational guy. A lot of people would look at my Facebook messages and different things like that, and it just became powerful. I've always been an individual who loved quotes, and once I got out, I knew I was going to do something as far as motivation. I just didn't know how, and it just came up when the idea for I Am Greatness came to me. One, greatness being my nickname, and wanting to empower others. But that was the reason that I started it.
Yes, absolutely. You've been able to accomplish a lot, at a very, very young age. Like, you've been able to do so much, and you've seen so much, and you've experienced so much already. One of the questions that I did have for you was, what made you want to join the military at such a young age, and what made you want to be involved in public speaking, and what made you want to become an author after all of that? Because I do know that, like I said, a lot of people in the military, I know a lot of people in the military. I know it's not for everybody.
Right.
So what made you want to be involved in the military in the first place? Because I know that requires a lot of thought, and people don't just think about it. If they wake up and say, they just sign off and go along their way. So what made you want to do that?
All right. So the main reason that I joined the military, I was in college. I was going to Penn State University, and I wasn't doing well. I wasn't happy. I wasn't enjoying college. I didn't think that college was for me. The matter of fact, this was actually my junior year at Penn State, but I had never wanted to go to college. It was actually something that my father pushed me to do, which, when your parents push you to do something, you do it begrudgingly, but it just feels wrong. And I wanted to drop out on several occasions. I actually called my dad, telling him I was dropping out, and he just told me not to do it, and he would convince me to keep going. And I finally just gave in, and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm dropping out." And I started to look for a job. And something that happened earlier that year, this was 2008. Something that happened earlier that year is I had gotten caught stealing, shoplifting from a store. Just being a broke college student, I stole some canned goods from the corner store right outside of my apartment, to be honest with you. And I got this big fine, and I had gotten arrested, and I had a record. And as a result of that, every job that I went to, even though I was articulate, intelligent, people would tell me, "Wow, just based on the interview, you're hired." But at the end of the day, the background check would come in, and it would show that I recently had, stolen some canned goods, So it ended up being a hefty price to pay, and no one would hire me. So after I did an interview where the guy wouldn't even talk to me, because I wrote on the application that I had gotten caught stealing, he said, "Hey, I can't hire you," without even having a conversation. I got up and I walked straight to the recruiting station, right across the street from Penn State University. So I was literally at State College when I joined the military and went to see a recruiter for the first time. And the main reason that I did it was, one, I felt like a huge failure, and I didn't know if I could go back to my hometown and show my face. it just, to me, was so embarrassing. And that's just, example of one of the stories that we tell ourselves, that because we failed at one thing, we failed at college, that we think it's the end of the world. But, the other part of it was to pay off my college loans. And my mother disputes this, but she would call me. Once I told them that I was dropping out, my mother called me every single day after that and said, how are we going to pay these college loans? How are we going to pay these college loans? And I remember the next day, after I had signed the paperwork to join the military, after going to the recruiting station, she called me and she said, how are we going to pay these college loans? And I said, I joined the military. There's a loan repayment program. The Army's going to pay for it. And I hung up the phone on her. And immediately my dad called me back and said, you got to cancel it. Don't do it. No. Everybody in the family was pretty upset about it. It was a spur of the moment thing. I felt like I really had no other choice. I didn't want to go back home. I couldn't get a job anywhere else because of something that had happened just maybe 3 or 4 months earlier. And it just is something that I did, but it wasn't something that I wanted to do. I never really would say that I had a dream of joining the military. I was just one of those guys. I would even consider myself a hippie almost. and when I got there, it was complete culture shock. It wasn't something that I had ever really dreamed of or wanting to do. But at the end of the day, it definitely made me grow as not just a human being, but as a leader. And being in the military, like I said, you have a lot of opportunities to speak up and to lead and to take charge. And that's one of the things that they build you. They break you down and they build you back up. But the part of the breaking you down, it can be quite extensive. Not everybody gets built back up where everybody recovers. And just like you said, it's not for everybody. My cousin literally asked me the other day, he just graduated from Boston University, and he said to me, he said, hey, I'm thinking about joining the military, becoming an officer, and so on and so forth. And I told him, I said, hey, listen, if you want to do it, go for it. But I wouldn't advise that you do it, because like I said, I got people who have mental problems right now. I have friends who have, lost their lives as a result of that. And definitely wouldn't say it's for everybody.
Yes, and I definitely understand everything that you're saying. So my question, I guess this is not a question that I sent you guys, but this is something that I just thought about, since you both talk about, mental illness, in terms of your experience being in the military, with some of your colleagues, and unfortunately taking their own lives because of their own battle with that. And Ms. Johnson, with the work that you do, with people, who struggle with mental illness as well. So I know that PTSD is something, it's a common mental illness that many people from the military suffer from. And that can even be in the case with people who may grow up in a dysfunctional household, or people who may have who've been exposed, children or sometimes even adults who may have been exposed to very traumatic things. So Mr. Hunter, my question for you is, like, what are some of the things that could cause someone in the military to have PTSD? Because I know what PTSD is, but I don't really know, because I've never been in the military before. But I know that you often go in. A lot of people in the military, they went in with a clear mind, with their objective. They know what they want once they're finished, but sometimes they don't. The outcome is not what they expect it to be in terms of how they end up, and
right.
And how they carry themselves. So what is that like?
So there are a ton of different factors that could cause someone to have PTSD. PTSD can come from just being yelled at, So there's a lot of situations. Perfect example. I remember my first year, there's a window that opens where you can re-enlist for more time. And I remember my platoon sergeant came over to me after I had told them that I didn't want to re-enlist. And he said to me, he's like, oh, so you don't want to re-enlist because we yell at you? And I said, yes, because you yell at me. But in reality, that could be a part of it. But then there's also situations that occur while you're at war. Like I had the opportunity to fight in the war in Iraq. We got blown up while we were out there a few times. Vehicles blew up right in front of you. You got shot at a few times. It wasn't one of the worst experiences. I'm sure that there's soldiers who had worse experiences, because I went during the 7th tour, Operation Iraqi Freedom Tour 7. So it had gotten a lot tamer when I was out there, but still there were things that occurred that were unexpected, or I shouldn't even say unexpected, but expected to a degree. And people may have, a traumatic memories of those things. I got a buddy who wakes up and has night terrors. And there's several different things. That one explosion could have affected, so many different people in so many different ways. Fortunately for me, I don't necessarily have PTSD in that manner, but they do say that all of us have it. I don't like being in large crowds for too long, different things of that nature. But my symptoms are a lot less severe than most. But unfortunately, it's just the way we compartmentalize, and you don't know that you're going to be that type of person. You don't know how it's going to affect you. So like I said, it could be any number of things. It could be just from being yelled at. Most guys in the military have never been in a fist fight, and most people don't even realize that. You think that we're all just these tough guys, but in reality, we have to take combatives training. So, and in combatives training, there's a level. In the first level, you get punched in the face. It's literally a part of the training because you've never taken a punch before. So, like, at the end of the day, you don't know what it's going to be. There's a lot of different situations that could have caused it. And I like to think that because there's such a lack of love in the military, I think there's a lot of trauma that causes. You don't see too many people who you would believe care about you. And I went through that, especially during my first year in the military. I didn't have any friends. I got in trouble a lot. So when you get in trouble a lot, you get labeled. And as a result of being labeled as a troublesome soldier, people don't want to hang out with you. Because at the end of the day, if they're hanging out with you, hey, they're probably going to get in trouble too. So, I suffered through that for a little bit, even went through a bout of depression. But you get through it. You get through it, and you got to keep going. But there are safety protocols on holidays, because people come from all types of backgrounds where, their family might have treated them one way or disowned them, or they don't have any family at all. And the military is their family. And you start to look up to individuals who maybe you shouldn't look up to. And that can get kind of hairy,
Yes, and I thank you for sharing all of that. It definitely gives me a better understanding of what that looks like for people who have been in the military, because I do know a lot of people in the military, and I do know people who suffer from PTSD because of all of their experiences in the military. But I didn't really have an understanding in terms of what that really stemmed from. So I do I appreciate you for sharing that. Now, with your work as an author, could you tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you worked on and some of the speaking engagements that you've had? Now, I know that one of your buddies were on my show. He was on my show last week, Dom Brightman, and he talked about being involved in Toastmasters and his podcast and everything else. And I've worked with him for the past few years. So could you tell us a little bit about your work as an author and what you've accomplished in that area?
Well, I mean, my main accomplishment as an author, well, I'll tell you this, just going back to, like, even in middle school and high school, I just always have enjoyed writing. I've always been, what my teachers have told me, a very good writer. And I kind of took it for granted, almost like there are people who can sing who never really think about putting it to like a track or making actual music. But I wrote, and I kept a diary, and I would write in my diary and tell stories, and it's kind of like a coping mechanism. And just being in Toastmasters and being around so many educated people who have accomplished so many different things, people who are authors, it just compelled me to want to write as well. Dominic Brightman is the main reason that I ended up writing a book. All these years I've been writing and being told that I was a good writer, and I just never put pen to paper to actually put something together, and what ended up happening was I created the Greatness Manifesto, and I told stories from high school and from the military, as well as different things that I utilized over the years that have helped me to be successful in many different areas and facets in life. And but he, being so young, I think he's much younger than me. I'm 34. He's and still in his 20s. And I looked at that like, whoa, like, hey, man, this guy, he wrote a book. You know, I think at the time that he wrote it, he might have been like 23 maybe or something like that. So I was like, hey, I got to get to it too. If my buddy right here can write a book, I can write a book too. And that's exactly what I did. It actually took me about 3 months. I wrote about 1,000 words a day, and I put the book together. And it was really cool getting the opportunity to go to different events where you met other authors and you got to read chapters from your book, or just having speaking engagements where I would go over specifically one chapter that might have been able to help the audience and whatnot. But you know, it's been a great thing. And the reality is, now that you've written one book, you know that you can write more. So I got a ton of stories to tell, and I can't wait to tell them. And I'm going to continue to put them out there. I also started a blog, and the blog you can find at both marchunter.com as well as iamgreatness.com. And I put my thoughts to paper now, and I put it out there for the world to see, because you never know who it's going to help.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, again, I want to thank you for sharing all of your experiences. And again, you're the very first you're a military veteran on my show, and again, this was a perfect way to kind of prepare for Memorial Day weekend, because I do know that not just yourself, there are millions of people, millions of soldiers around the world, many people who, just like yourself, who served and who made that sacrifice. And I think that it was perfect that you had the opportunity to come on this evening to talk about your experiences with that, because a lot of people don't understand what goes on. A lot of people don't understand. A lot of people take that for granted. They don't understand what the sacrifices are and how many sacrifices you've had to make during your time that you served. So it's great that you've had the chance to share that with the listeners so that they can appreciate that more and have a better understanding of that. So Ms. Johnson, one question I forgot to ask you was what projects are you working on now? Because I know that you talked about your coloring book and your activity book that you had for children that you self-published last year. So do you have any other projects that you're working on that tie into the work that you do? And my other question is, now that we're coming out on the other side of the pandemic, we're starting to get back to a sense of normalcy. So because of all of the restrictions that are being lifted, what is in store for you in terms of the work that you do? And do you have any more projects that you're working on right now?
Yeah, so I'm working on my curriculum, the Body Safety Zone curriculum, so I can put it out there so other practitioners, teachers, mentors will be able to, because I want it to be replicated. I want every child in the world, if I could have my way, I would have every single child in the world know about their body safety zones and the importance of them having body agency, control over their own body, and knowing that it's okay if you tell an adult no, if they are, trying to touch them or groom them, to then later on take advantage of them in some kind of way. So I had that going on. And at first I was kind of pushing myself to try to have it done by August, but I said maybe I'll have it done by the end of this year. I have a book that I've actually written, but they're like my babies. So I actually wrote that 2009, 2008, something like that. And I don't know. It's Voices of the Unheard. And it's so personal. It's a culmination of my story, client stories, conversations. I like to talk to people. So when I travel, I really like to talk to people and get their perspective. So it's like, it's a mixture of all of those different stories that I've heard over the years. And it's not really poems, so to speak, but it's just words. I call them words on paper, and some of them have to do with abuse, some of them have to do with violence, PTSD, and love, breakups and things like that. So I don't know when I'm going to put that out. I'm just not sure. Maybe I'll put it out when I next year for my one of my Hallmark birthdays. I don't know yet. And the other thing is that I'll be working again with arena players on McCullough, volunteering there, working with children, social emotional learning this summer. And I'm looking forward to having the Black National Hair Expo. I'll be a vendor there next weekend, Saturday and Sunday at Doubletree, and I'm planning on doing something on Juneteenth. So just being able to, I really want to have opportunities to be in the community and share my story, and interact with the children, interact with the parents. And in terms of what's on the other side, I want to, say for people, be careful with wanting to jump back out there and get back to normal, because it's not ever going to be normal again. We have to be considerate of people that have lost. I know one person that I work with that lost so many family members, it would blow your mind. So as we're interacting with people, as we are yippee happy that maybe we weren't devastated and it was more of an inconvenience for us, let's be mindful and heartful of the people that have really, experienced devastating losses. Because who knows how long it'll be us really dealing with the emotional and mental impact of this pandemic has had on us. So as we get out there, and some people have been concerned about getting their hair cut and different things like that, but we have to remember that we have dealt with some devastating things. I don't know where people have been that are so shocked and amazed by what happened with George Floyd or Breonna Taylor, or all the other people, because as a person that's been Black almost a half a century, I've been experiencing it. I've seen too many times Black men for no reason being bopped upside their head when police in Baltimore City, in East Baltimore, where I grew up, just for being outside. So being considerate of the fact that we have suffered many things in addition to this pandemic, and being considerate of our fellow human being, being protective of other people's humanity, because we just don't know. We didn't know before what people were going through. We definitely don't know now. So, just trying to be considerate of that, knowing that there are so many resources out there. There's so many hotlines that you can call. You can ask Google. You can ask Alexa, and I don't know who else you can ask in terms of the electronic part. But there are so many ways that you can reach out for help and for support. And it's absolutely nothing wrong. I like to tell my clients, you're not crazy. What's crazy is to know that something isn't right, that something is different, and that there's some help out there and not doing it. That's what's crazy. What's weak is to not take care of what's devastating your life and devastating your family and your children. That's weakness. There's strength in looking at and I don't even call it weakness. I tell my clients it should needs improvement. We all have something that we can improve upon, and so just reframing things. But I wanted to just say one thing about how Mr. Hunter, I loved how you talked about the military in the different ways that it has devastated people. And I want to say, Mr. Nelson, when you said, the sacrifice that they have, I am in a long-term relationship with a soldier. I call him my own personal superhero. He's a warrior. And, the impact and the sacrifices that families make too. I'm sure that even though your mother wanted that loan paid off when her baby was over, being a mother of, adult son, when her baby was over in that war, I bet you she had a lot of anxiety and, probably was always on her knees praying that, her baby came back. So it's the sacrifices of the families too. And thank God, Mr. Hunter, you had a supportive family that rallied around you. But I want to go back to what I said before, not having that connection to other people can do a lot of devastating things. So if you have one person that supports you, you would be amazed. Everybody needs to have that one, and so I loved how you talked about the different things, being isolated, from even basic training, that does a lot to folks, and never taking a punch in the face and then bam, you get banged in your face. You're like, what the heck? That is traumatic. And of course, as a big old brawny, so you come out dieseled and cocked up after you're not going to want to admit that, but it does have something, because maybe you question your manhood. Like, I should have banged them back or something, who knows? But the sacrifices that the families make also has an impact on the soldier, because not everyone handles that stoically. Some people, while the soldier is over, they're writing them stories, telling them about the things that are going on at home when that's the last thing they need to know about. So they're trying to cope and be supportive, but at the same time, they're also having to deal with stressors. So I just wanted to add that. I hope I answered the question. And I didn't say how I can be contacted, but I'm on Instagram at Persistence is the Way. And my books are available on www.etsy.com/shop/Persistence is the Way. And I hope that people really appreciate what you've done here and what you do, Mr. Nelson, because it's not so easy to talk about these things. And if you look, we're all people of color, right? And so to make it all right and to make it just as normal as when we sit up and talk about a TV show or the next restaurant, and and stop kind of dressing up shells. Let's get to the nitty gritty of what's going on inside of us, so we will be not just looking beautiful on the outside or looking well on the outside, but really well. And we have to sometimes get the ugly out. But we have to get the ugly out before we can get to our, goodness. And as Mr. Hunter, your greatness, and that's all right. You sometimes have to walk through a lot of dog manure and horse manure before you get to smell the roses. That's what creates the roses, the stinkiness and the difficulty. So bravo to both of you young men for being willing to put that out there, and especially trying to reach young people, because our young people need it. They need to have, especially men, to look up to and not buy into the narrative that people that have no interest in our community is putting out there. So I know it's not easy for you all to do, and I commend both of you for doing it. I appreciate both of you. I really do.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Johnson, again for everything that you've just laid out here on the table, and thank you for all of the work that you do. And Mr. Hunter, my last few questions for you. The first one is, what is your takeaway for people this Memorial Day weekend in terms of what you want them to think about, and also ways in which people can contact you directly if they want to know more about your experience in the military and just the stories that you have to tell?
So one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that, Memorial Day isn't the same as Veterans Day, right? So Memorial Day is about remembering the soldiers that have passed. Like I was talking to you about my friend Dwayne Johnson, as well as Daniel Wilderman. So every Memorial Day, I eat some meat and I kick back a few, and I think about the good times that I had with those guys, as well as the other soldiers that I served with. Fortunately for me, when I went to war, no one actually passed. We all came back home, as an entire unit. So we were very fortunate with that. But it's a day where you remember those who passed. So keep that in mind. And there's a lot of people who had very close calls. Like I was telling you before, I've seen vehicles blow up in front of me. I had friends who were in those vehicles. Fortunately, I wasn't in those vehicles, but traumatic events, things that we did for this country, and we put ourselves in the lines, not just our physical bodies, but also our mental ones. So, if you have an opportunity, kick back a bear, or, if you eat meat, sure. I don't eat meat most of the time, but on Memorial Day, I definitely have a few burgers and I drink a few beers. I'm not much for alcohol either. I have I'm a wine guy nowadays, but at the end of it, I try to think of the bravado that we had while we were in, and how much fun we had together. And I remember those guys. So remember the fallen soldiers, remember those who have passed, and those who did a lot for this country, and they weren't necessarily asked to, but they chose to. They volunteered to do it.
Yes, absolutely. What are some of the ways in which people can connect with you directly?
So you can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all at the same handle, the great one, THEGR80NE. And also you can check me out on marchunter.com, IamGreatness.com, as well as the I Am Greatness accounts. They're all the same at 1 AM Greatness for all the handles, Twitter, Instagram, the whole nine.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I thank you both for being on my show this evening. I thank you for taking your time out to discuss the work that you both do. Both of you have a history of service in different arenas, and it's much appreciated. And I'm glad that you both had the opportunity to share that with the listeners so that they can feel uplifted, informed, and inspired after this. So it's definitely worth it. So I thank you both for taking time out to be on my show this evening. And before we go, I want to let you all know that next week we are going to have Miss Lakeisha Mosley on our broadcast. So this is going to be for Tuesday, June 1st. So she's going to be a part of our broadcast to talk about a book she co-authored about Christian marriage. So that is going to be for us next week. I also want to let you all know that The Beauty in Us, Our Souls in Armor is Volume 3. It's the third installment of my book series that you all can head on over to Amazon and purchase. This is the third installment that was released earlier this month by me, and I'm very, very excited about it. So make sure you all get your copy. And I also want to let you all know that the Dear Nelson column for the Thoughts magazine is going to be available this summer. So please stay tuned for that. I'm still jotting down a lot of ideas for that and for the content that I would like to share. So please feel free to let me know, your thoughts about what you would like to read about and what you would like to learn about from me. And I can definitely see how I can fit that into the entire column for the next year. So that wraps up the show this evening. So again, this is the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. Make sure that you download the Awesome God Radio app. Make sure that you connect with all of us on all of our social media outlets. This is the Beauty in Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. I'm your host, Nelson E. Brown. Make an appointment to meet me back here at 6 p.m. next Tuesday on June 1st. So again, I want to thank you all for being with us this evening for this conversation. It was difficult, but it was necessary for us to discuss. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time.
Yep, welcome.